All right. Happy Tuesday. I hope you were able to get out and enjoy that nice weather that we had yesterday, although it was crazy windy. And today has the same wind and not quite so warm. But I look forward to the day where it is not windy and also nice out, so we can have class outside in the morning. It'll be really great when we can get to that point. So as you can see, we do have a new project starting today. I know not everybody is 100% done with the old project. You will have time to work on that today. I just want to get these ideas out to you and get you thinking about them, because this new project is going to be kind of weird. It's going to be kind of different. You, as my advanced students, third level students, have done a lot of vessel making. You've made cups and plates and bowls and all sorts of different things, and that's what you're comfortable with. So I'm going to push you outside of your comfort zone a little bit for this unit. So I'm going to get you that information today, let you start thinking about it, kind of marinating in your brain juice, and then we'll actually start construction on it tomorrow. So, so I do want to put forth this disclaimer. It's going to be uncomfortable, potentially, this project. And I want to get that out there because this is going to be a very different technique than you've ever done before in this class. It can also be very liberating because there's no right or wrong way to do this. And so that's uncomfortable for some who want to do it right and who want to have it look perfect. And so what I want to give you the freedom to realize that there is no perfect for this upcoming unit. Some of you remember doing the Curry Nuki project where there was a wabi-sabi aesthetic and the imperfection was the perfection of the piece. So we're kind of a little bit in that realm for this project as well. So the thing you're going to be building is a sculpture, not a vessel. So it's not going to be something that's a cup or a bowl or a plate. It's meant to be functional. You're going to be building with coils, which you're familiar with, but you're not going to be building with coils in the traditional way. So you're going to be learning a new way to build with coils. And when you're done with this project, this is the one we're going to raku fire. So we're going to be doing the two kinds of special firing, the horsehair firing, which is the project you just completed, the porcelain one, and the raku firing are going to be done on the same day. And so this is why we're starting with these two projects, the porcelain and the raku, because they have to get dried and fired and prepped and ready so that they're ready for that day where we do the outdoor firing. So we're getting these two done first, and then I know some people are really anxious to start throwing on the wheel. Then your project after this one will be one where you can work on the wheel if you choose to do so. So it's coming, trust me. So just want to get that disclaimer out of there. On the next page in your notebook, please, if you would write up at the top, I'll click back, modular sculpture. There is going to be some new vocab that you're going to write down. It's going to go with this unit. So you write modular sculpture, and then I'll click forward to the vocab. Anyone heard that word modular before? Yeah. Yeah? Do you know what it means? Or could you describe what you think it means?
Does it mean you can like add stuff or like take away stuff from something?
Yeah, absolutely. It means you can kind of move stuff around and put it together in different configurations, take away, add. Absolutely. Yes. So that kind of gives you a little clue, a little insight into what we're doing. All right. So please take a couple minutes here to get these 5 relevant terms relevant to this unit into your notebook. I'll give you a couple minutes to write, and then I will elaborate. So these are the terms you're going to hear me using a lot in this unit. These are the terms I want you to be comfortable using as you're talking about your work with others. Some of these words are probably ones that you already know outside of the ceramics world because they have other meanings in other areas of life. But we're going to be applying them to what we construct. This unit is going to be very architectural, just to kind of also give you a little bit further insight into what we're doing. It's got a strong architecture component. So term number one is motif. A motif is a design or shape. And if you repeat that motif, you get a pattern. So if you have a stripy shirt, you know, that stripe is a motif. And when you repeat it, you get a pattern. Polka dots or lemons on your mask, that lemon is a motif. Repeated, it becomes a pattern. So the way that's relevant to what we're doing is you're going to be choosing a motif, a three-dimensional motif designed with coils, and you're going to be repeating it to create a pattern. Term number two is modular construction. And as Dave pointed out, modular means building by combining or taking away similar components, and those components would be called modules. That's why it's called modular construction. And you can arrange those modules in a variety of ways. And for the purposes of what we're doing in here, when we talk about modules or pieces that can be moved around, we're really talking about our motifs, our designs can be moved around and put together in different ways. So you're going to be, again, picking a motif, designing a motif, three-dimensional motif that can be repeated and put together in different ways using modular construction. Within that, those three-dimensional motifs, you're going to need struts. Struts are support beams that are going to help hold up and make that thing stay vertical or stay horizontal, make it remain upright. Because this is a three-dimensional cut. It would be three-dimensional. Next, terms are positive space and negative space. You're going to have to think about this a lot in this project because it's going to have a lot of air. It's going to have a lot of windows in it. And so the positive space is the actual object that you're sculpting, the little coils you're sculpting, the space occupied by those coils. The negative space are the holes, the emptiness, because those are just as interesting or can be just as interesting as the actual sculpture itself. So you're going to find that balance between positive space and negative space in the work. Anybody need further time to take down these terms? Great. Okay. So just to elaborate a little bit more on some of these things, here we see three examples of motifs, right? What are the motifs on this shirt? Flowers and leaves, right? So if you had a shirt with one flower and one leaf on it, you would look at it and say, wow, that's a nice shirt with flowers and leaves. But when it's repeated, when that motif is repeated over the entire thing, it just makes it have a whole different level of interest. So here's an example where we have motifs in our daily life. Here's another example of motif. What do you see repeated across all these tiles? Yeah, diamonds, geometric squares, shapes, and they're repeated. They create this really nice, pleasing pattern that enhances our life. And even in landscaping, landscape artists, people go to school to learn landscape design, and they use motifs in landscape design. The fact that that landscape artist put those round, prickly cactuses and repeated them and spaced them out to create a sense of cohesion and unity. And there are different types of plants that have smaller leaves, plants that have more spiky leaves. That was planned. That wasn't just random. They didn't just happen to grow there. That was planned out. So those motifs are repeated to create this sense of harmony and repetition. So this is really something that you can start seeing in your everyday life. Modular construction is also present in our everyday life. I found this commercial, and it's just a perfect representation of modular construction. So bear with me. is a great visual representation of what Dave mentioned of modular construction. Less restrictions. Yeah, I would say leave after this, or after the intro to the new project. So the couch show, right? Fascinating. But it really is great at showing how you can take one module, one soft cube, and use it in lots of different ways and get all sorts of different configurations. Struts, as I mentioned, are things that are structural. On a bridge, what kind of shape is the strongest to make something just redistribute weight and hold a lot of weight? Triangles, right? So you see a lot of triangle struts on bridges and other types of architecture. And those are meant to be mainly functional, right? To draw out the weight, and so a lot of weight isn't resting on a single point. But sometimes struts can also be really beautiful. Does anyone know what those diagonal architectural structures are coming away from this church? They are support beams, but there's the most fun architectural term ever is what these things are named. They're a flying buttress. Have you heard that term before, flying buttress? So those are flying buttresses coming off of the cathedral, and they're redistributing the weight of the roof of the cathedral. So the roof isn't squarely on the walls of the structure, so that weight is redistributed outward. And so that's something you need to think about as you're designing your sculpture. What kind of struts do you need? How can they both support weight, but also be kind of a cool part of your design? Last little elaboration I want to do on our terms is the positive and negative space elaboration. We've all saw that spaces and bases and faces, optical illusion, right? Depending on how you look at it, you either see a base or a face. That's a great example of positive and negative space. The base is positive space, the faces of the negative space, and they're both equally interesting. Like one, draws our eye just as equally as the other. So when you're designing a sculpture, especially one that has a lot of openings in it, you want those openings, those negative spaces, to be just as interesting as the sculpture itself, like that piece by Henry Moore. So something that I just want you to keep at the back of your brain as you start kind of thinking about how this is going to come together for you. So we're going to look at some emerging artists that use motifs, modular construction, positive and negative space. And when we look at their work, I think you're going to get a better idea of what we're heading for with this unit. I haven't been super upfront about that yet, but I'm getting there. So these are emerging artists. So this is kind of the opposite of Warren McKenzie. You learned about Warren on Friday. He's a very established artist, or was an established artist. These are artists that are just beginning to dip their toe in the scene of ceramics. And they've been around for a while, but they're younger, and they're trying to make a name for themselves and becoming the next Warren McKenzie, right? So the first one is Austin Coudrier. Austin is from Nebraska. He lives in New York now, working at a ceramic art center in New York. And you can see, this is an example of one of his pieces that's very much in the style that he works. You can see a very strong influence of architecture in his work. In fact, his dad was an architect. And so he was around a lot of architectural drawings and practice structures around his house. So this very much has influenced his work. So I'm going to advance to the next screen, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about what you see here in his work. So take a couple seconds, just kind of look and see this first piece of Austin's. And just totally objectively, somebody tell me what's one thing you see in this piece. A bucket, yep. What's another thing you see? A red square, yep, exactly. What's another thing you see? Sabrina, what's something you see in this sculpture?
It almost looks like the
Yeah, yeah. Are you thinking like Lincoln Logs, like that game that the building construction you played when you were a kid? Yep. Good. What's another thing that you see? See, Kendall. What's something you see when you look at this?
I mean, I guess I noticed how the artist puts emphasis on having like tone colors and everything else. And the one bright red square as well as the like cup being a standout shape.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah, the busy kind of coily bits are kind of the blah color or the neutral color, and then the vessel part is very bright colors. Yeah. Why do you think the artist would have made that choice? Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree with that. It definitely is the part that catches our eye the most. So what are the repeated motifs? What do you see being repeated again and again? Say again?
Coils.
The coils, exactly, right? And so the coils that are running horizontal, the coils that are running vertical, and I would say even the spaces are repeated motifs. And he's working in a way that is very regimented, right? Like true architecture. Does this make you think of anything? Yeah, great.
I can't tell like how big it is or small.
It is hard to tell the scale, isn't it? Yeah, because there's nothing like in the picture to help you tell the scale. It's really interesting observation. This could be enormous, like big enough to jump in, or it could be like the size of a cup to drink out of. Yeah. What does this make you think of? When you look at it, does it remind you of anything? A sled. Yeah, what parts of it remind you of the sled?
It's brown.
It's brown, and the bottom, like it kind of looks like the runners that would be on the bottom of a sled, like an old timey sled, maybe. Yep. What else does it remind you of?
All those big water drills on top of the towers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a water tower. I don't know if they're called anything other than that. Probably there's a name for them, but yeah, I can totally see that. Like those water towers that sometimes are on top of old buildings that is their source of water. Yeah, awesome. Good, good, good. So just a little bit more about Austin. So when you're an emerging artist, when you're trying to make a name for yourself in the ceramics world, and you've gotten through college, and you have your ceramic major or whatever art major you have, and maybe you get a master's degree, and then what? You know, do you go out into the world and be an artist? And that's, you know, it's sometimes the next step is you become a resident artist at an art facility. And that's what Austin is doing. He's a resident artist, which means they pay him to make his art there at their facility. And also then he teaches at that facility. Now, another thing that Austin has done that's a pretty cool thing, he's joined this group of other ceramic artists, and they call themselves the Clay Siblings. And what they do, they live in all different parts of the United States, but they're part of this collective. And they go around to high schools that don't have a ceramics program, unlike you folks who are super lucky to have ceramics in high school. Some schools don't have a ceramics teacher. And so he goes around and kind of volunteers to do ceramic lessons in high schools. And in fact, he actually was in the Wellstone High School, which is in Minneapolis, a couple of years ago. So this is a picture of him with a high school student. They work on pieces together, and he brings ceramics to schools that don't have it. So he's doing some really interesting things as he's kind of moving on that next step, moving up the ladder in the world of ceramics. Here's another artist that works in a style that's going to be maybe kind of similar to what we're doing for this unit, Shi Yuan Xu. So Shi Yuan is an immigrant from China, and she is now a professor at a college in Pennsylvania. She's done lots of residencies. She has been in a lot of different shows. She's invited to be in a lot of ceramic shows for her work that is very similar to this piece that you see on the screen. Her work is all kind of in the same really airy and line-based, coil-based style. So here's some examples of Shi Yuan's work. And I'm going to ask you the same questions that I asked about Austin. First of all, take a moment, take a look, and then tell me, what do you literally see? Like, what's one thing that you see? Yes, yes. So there's some sort of structure that's melting through. And the melting is actually appears to be what's supporting the structure. What's another thing that you see? Derek, I'm gonna ask you to close up your computer, please. What's one thing you see? Just literally what's the thing that's in front of your eyeballs when you look at this? I am asking you.
A lot of like open space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what shapes are those open spaces?
Almost like oval open spaces. Like squares, I'd say.
Yeah, kind of a lot of geometric shapes, like kind of hexagon squares, kind of whatever space is really necessary to create the little struts to hold things up. What's one more thing that we can literally objectively see in these sculptures?
Like yolk coming out of an egg.
It does look like yolk coming out of an egg. That is a really interesting observation. I never would have thought about that, but now that you mentioned it, it's all I can see. Yeah, that is a really great observation. What shape are the overall forms that you see? Potato shape, that's really
Beans.
beans, potatoes, they're organic, right? Which is kind of interesting because the shapes are like potatoes or beans or rocks or whatever it is that you see. But the structures, as Derek pointed out, are very geometric. So there's a really interesting little contrast between the overall form and the little shapes that make up that form. So we kind of mentioned already what are the repeated motifs: the potato shape, the geometric cutout shapes, the drips are repeated motifs. And Tyler pointed out one of the things it made him think of an egg. What's another thing that these make you think of when you look at them? Clouds, yep. And so then the drips would represent maybe rain. Yep, that's a really good observation. Another thing that these remind you of when you look at them?
The desert cracking, like the desert.
Yeah, absolutely. When the mud gets really dry,
Yeah.
it cracks like that. That is exactly how that looks. Wow, really good comparison. Excellent. Yes. So Shiyuan is working again in this way that requires a lot of struts. It requires a lot of positive space, negative space, and nobody mentioned this, but one of the things that her pieces really remind me of are cells. You know, like if you were to diagram a cell, they kind of look like I forget the name of the different components, the mitochondria or whatever, you know, the different parts of the cell. And she has mentioned that is a thing that inspires her is cellular growth and bacteria and some of the things that are microscopic, but you know, she reproduces them on a much larger level. So Shiyuan's work might be one that we use as inspiration. She uses a lot of those arching shapes, positive space, negative space to create her sculptures. The third artist and final artist we're going to look at is Shannon Goff. Shannon is a ceramics professor also on the East Coast and produces work that usually gets destroyed. She usually works in cardboard or unfired clay. This happens to be one of her fired ones right here. And so her work is really interesting because it's not meant, in most cases, to stick around. But we're going to look at pieces that are more close to what we might be doing. So these are ones that have stuck around that are fired. So let's look at this one first. Let's literally first just take a look. Couple seconds. And somebody tell me, what is one thing you see in this sculpture? There is a little circle. Yeah, did you guys catch that? There's a tiny little circle on the top left. Good. What's another thing that you see here? Let's start calling on people who I haven't heard from. Yeah, go ahead, Bree. What do you see? There is a rainbow foot. It almost reminds me of like a flip-flop. You know, it looks like rainbow foam. I don't know what that bottom part's made of, but yeah, there's this like strong color burst on the bottom. What's another thing that we see? Madeline, can you share a thing that you see when you look at the sculpture? Ooh, can you tell me why that reminds you of a roller coaster? They really are. It's like a roller coaster, like that would send you out of your mind with fear, right? And you would be puking when you get off of it. Yeah, it's crazy. Those coils are really just going everywhere. What's another thing that you can objectively say that you see in this sculpture? Oh, go ahead.
Lots of different angles.
Yeah, a ton of different angles, right? And a lot of sharp angles. It's not a lot of smooth, round angles. It's all very pointy, and it looks like if you touched it, it would maybe injure you. So it's got a lot of points to it. Madeline pointed out that this looked like a roller coaster, and that's an awesome comparison. Any other things that this reminds you of when you look at it? Taylor, what do you think? When you look at this, does it remind you of anything?
I don't know, spiders.
Ooh, yes, yes. The color like is spider-like, and then all the little like angled legs. Yeah. I totally see that. One other person, let's hear from one other person. Quinn, when you see this, what does this make you think of?
I don't know, I just feel like the triangles.
Yeah, it does have a ton of strong angles. That's a repeated motif, right? Those pointy angles and coils. If I tell you the title of this piece, I think it will remind you of one additional thing that you will have no idea until I tell you the title. It's entitled Single Ladies. Do you kind of get why?
Oh, she liked it, so she put a ring.
Did she put a ring on it? Yeah. Sometimes it's the title that just brings everything together, right? So here's a picture of Shannon making one of her pieces in an actual gallery space. And you can see she's working with raw clay. And when she's done building it, it's just going to dry out in the gallery. And people are going to come and view the work, and they're going to walk around it. And when the show is done, the piece will get destroyed and recycled. So her work is not meant to live beyond that one show that it's a part of. And she believes that that's a really important part of making, is realizing that we're just working with this earth, and the earth needs to go back to earth. It doesn't need to be this precious thing that sits on a shelf. So that's why she works with cardboard a lot, and that's why she works with unfired clay a lot. Now, we are going to fire our clay because it would be nice to have a memento of the work that we've done and to be able to raku fire it. So we're not going to work in this exact same unfired way, but you can see all the little struts that she's building, including the ones that come diagonally out from the center to make sure that this is well supported and well thought out. And so that is something that we're going to be using as inspiration as we're working. Now, we've had enough of listening and talking and observing. You're going to actually get to practice doing this today. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to grab a chunk of clay from the bag in front of you. There's already a wedged chunk for everybody sitting out on the table. I did it ahead of time just to make this go a little bit quicker. And you're going to choose a theme. All right, so I'm not going to assign you a theme. You're going to choose a theme of either order or chaos, right? Order is when things are all perfect and right and they're going just how we want them to be. Chaos is when things are a lot more crazy and out of control and we can't control them. So you're going to pick either order or chaos, and don't tell anyone what you've chosen, right? Just think about it in your head. Then you're going to take that clay that's in front of you. You're going to start making coils and shapes and designs. And you're going to kind of come up with maybe a primary design or a primary motif that you can recreate again and again and again. And then you're going to start putting it together very quickly. This is not something we're going to keep. This is practice. This is a way to get you to start thinking with coils three-dimensionally as a sculpture and not just rolling and making a vessel like you always have. So you're going to go ahead, grab your clay now. It's already been wet. One piece for you, one piece for your neighbor. Start making some coils. Start thinking, what kind of shapes represent order? What kind of shapes represent chaos? Whatever theme it is that you're choosing. You get 5 minutes to build a construction that represents order or chaos. And then you're going to see if the people who are around you can guess what your theme was, just based on the kind of shapes that you make. This doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be scored and slipped. This is just to start practicing being loose, being gestural, kind of like you're drawing in 3 dimensions. I'm going to put on some music while you're working. check in with the kids online. Hey, Chloe. Hi. All right, so Chloe, you're going to be doing this too, but you're going to do it on your own time. All right, so you're going to be taking a little chunk of your stoneware clay, rolling coils, and building something that either represents order or chaos, and that's part of what you're going to take your photo of today.
Okay.
So remember, when you're working three-dimensionally, not only are your pieces going to go vertical, they might need to go horizontal, they might need to go diagonal to help with support. I know. So I'm thinking after we get done doing stuff for today, that's what we're going to You're looking pretty good. You got 3 minutes left. Oh. You don't need to be super big, super elaborate. Budget your time, budget your clay. See what you can produce that represents either order or chaos in the next 3 minutes. That is the best jungle gym ever. I would totally play on that. It is like it's freeing when it doesn't have to look like something. There's no right or wrong. You did that really fast. That's impressive. And I bet I know what it is that was your theme. But we'll see if I'm right. We'll wait. I kind of like that. It looks like a suspension bridge or something. Okay. What can you figure out now? So you have a lot of things that are like on this axis. What can you figure out that might stand up? Yeah. All right, 1 more minute, finish up what you can. Remember, this is just for play, just for practice to start getting you to think in terms of three-dimensional drawing, creating motifs, repeating motifs, creating modules that can be repeated. I don't know what it is. I love it. I love that there's like these little rings around things, and they repeated that as your motif. That is pretty awesome. Yeah, that's great though. It's a very sturdy shape. So it's very nice. let's wrap it up. This was just for play, just for fun. So I want you to look at the tables around you, or look at the people's work around you, and see if you can guess which theme they went with. Was it order? Was it chaos? Talk to each other and see if you can make a guess.
Order is no.
Still rings.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like pointing upward. Yep. So did you two already talk about it? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Take that. And what was it? See, that's how we can just let our idea kind of evolve and change and like go the other way all the time. That's awesome. Good. Ooh, I like your big structure. It is, yeah, something that big is gonna require some drugs, right? Yeah, excellent. Let me guess. Order. Yep. Good. What thing you're in? Yeah. Oh my, that's really, really nice way to portray it. Awesome. Let me guess. Order. Yep. And what was yours? Order as well. Yep. Very stable. Very good. See that? Yeah.
Yeah, I could guess.
And order? Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. You got that symmetry going on there. Wonderful. Great. Good job, guys. Was that enjoyable to work in a way where you didn't quite know how it was supposed to look? Yeah. Very different than what we had to do before. So good job. Leave your structure. Don't crush it. Okay. This is part of what you're going to take a photo of. After you take your photo, you'll be able to crush it. We'll recycle these. We will not end up keeping these. This was practice. All right, this is the last thing you're going to do for today. Go back to your notebook, or last new thing you're going to do for today. Go back to your notebook, and I want you to do a little bit of sketching. What are some designs or patterns that you think that you could turn into coil designs? Patterns that are pleasing or soothing or exciting or interesting, things that you could see yourself repeating to be able to build structure. Do some little sketching of what those designs could be. What could those motifs be? Then you're going to chat with the person next to you, the person across from you, talk about your drawings, talk about your ideas. And then I'd like you to do a larger sketch, kind of planning out which of those designs do you think you could turn into a larger sculpture. So what you made here today, we're going to be working a little bit larger than what you did for this practice piece. We're going to be spending tomorrow, Thursday, and then possibly next Monday to try and finish this up and to build a larger scale coil-based modular sculpture. So do a little bit of sketching. Your progress picture for today is going to be a picture of your sketches and your notes next to your practice sculpture. And of course, your ideas might change, might evolve as you're actually working with clay. I want you to have a game plan. What is the shape? What is the motif? It could be repeated to create sculpture. You have no idea where to even begin. Think about doodling. If you're a person who likes to doodle in the margins of your notebook, what are some of those shapes that you doodle a lot? What are those shapes that you find really soothing to draw again and again and again? Perfect. That was exactly what that needed. When you've got some sketches down, show them to the person next to you. Talk about your ideas. Oops. Or set up your notes next to your practice sculpture and take your picture for today. Interesting. So it's actually kinetic. Yeah.
I do this like every day.
Yeah. Yes.
You already have.
Take a picture, yep, and then you can recycle your sculpture, and I'll talk about the porcelain here in a second. Sorry.
Are you submitting it?
You're gonna submit it, yep, you sure are. Ceramics. You're gonna recycle it in one of the buckets on the floor under the wedging table. Pardon me. So, when you have taken a photo of your practice sculpture, your sketches, submit it to Schoology. Ooh, I need to create the assignment yet. I just realized that. You should tell you how to be. I didn't even know it. Wow. Brilliant.
You are brilliant.
I'm gonna create that assignment in just a couple of minutes. Yeah, we're taking which is a full contact observation. Yeah, yeah. You can do that too. Absolutely. Yep. Shine it up and then take that photo and submit it for yesterday. We got half an hour.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, we got time. All the supplies you need. Oh, yeah. All the supplies you need for buffing, furnishing, finishing your porcelain are over here on table 9. It's gonna go underneath the white. All right, I'm gonna leave this up on the screen. I'm gonna check in with BLA.
This man, you want to get into this, like,
Yep, recycle it, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. All right, hey, Claire.